In 1983, a CIA analyst accidentally left a 29-page classified document on a shared government server. The document wasn't recovered, it wasn't destroyed, it was just forgotten for 20 years. And when it finally resurfaced, it described a technology so strange, so borderline insane, that the CIA's own scientists weren't sure if it was a weapon, a therapy tool, or proof that human consciousness works in a way nobody fully understands yet. This is the Gateway Protocol, and I promise you, by the end of this video, you will never think about your own mind the same way again. Okay, so let me set the scene. It's 1983. The Cold War is absolutely cooking. The Soviets and Americans are basically in a full-blown arms race, but not just for nukes anymore. They're racing for something weird, something that sounds like it belongs in a Marvel movie. They were racing to figure out if the human mind could be used as a weapon. And the CIA, in typical CIA fashion, decided to investigate every possible angle, including one that even their own analysts thought was, and I quote from the document, on the edge of what is currently accepted as reality. The Gateway process, officially called the Gateway Experience, was a program developed by a Virginia-based research institute called the Monroe Institute, named after Robert Monroe, a radio executive who, in the late 1950s, started randomly having out-of-body experiences during afternoon naps. Classic Tuesday, right? Monroe didn't ask for this. He wasn't meditating. He wasn't on anything. He just floated out of his body one day and thought, okay, this is interesting. Let me study it. And what he eventually figured out, and what the CIA later confirmed, is the reason why this protocol exists. But we need to go a little deeper first. So Monroe discovered something called hemisync, short for hemispheric synchronization. Here's the idea, and stick with me because this is actually wild once you get it. Your brain has two hemispheres, left and right, Normally, they operate somewhat independently, like two guys in an office who technically work together, but mostly do their own thing and occasionally argue over the thermostat. But Monroe figured out that if you place slightly different sound frequencies into each ear, say 200 Hz in the left and 210 Hz in the right, your brain, trying to reconcile the difference, starts producing a third frequency, a 10 Hz beat that isn't actually playing anywhere. Your brain just generates it. And the 10 Hz frequency, that's a theta brainwave. The same frequency your brain hits right at the edge of sleep, the zone where people report vivid imagery, emotional breakthroughs, and, Monroe claimed, the ability to step outside your own body. By the way, if you are interested in this kind of tech, I have provided a link down below of a product you may want to try, called the Genius Song. But back to the topic at hand. Now, here's where the CIA walks in. An Army lieutenant colonel named Wayne McDonald was tasked in 1983 to write an assessment of the Gateway process for the CIA. His job was simple. Is this real? Is it useful? Can we use it? And the assessment he produced is generally one of the strangest official government documents ever written. It casually discusses quantum mechanics, holographic theory, the nature of time, and whether human consciousness might exist outside the physical body. Oh, sorry, the brain. This is a government report, not a Reddit thread at 2 a.m. And buried in the middle of it, about 14 pages in, there's a section that describes exactly what the CIA believed the Gateway Protocol could actually do. And that is what I want to get to. But first, we need to talk about the part they screwed up. When the document was declassified and released on the CIA's own website in 2003, because yes, the CIA has a website, and yes, they just upload things there, people started reading through it, and they noticed something. Page 25 is missing. Not redacted, not blacked out, just gone. The document jumps from page 24 to page 26 like nothing happened. Like when you're watching a downloaded movie and there's just a random 2-minute skip and you're like, did something important just happen? Something definitely just happened. The CIA's official explanation when people filed FOIA requests about it was essentially it was a scanning error. Scanning error. On the one document that describes a government attempt to use altered consciousness as an intelligence tool. Sure, scanning error. Now, what was on page 25? Nobody knows for certain. But based on what's on page 24 and 26, researchers have pieced together a pretty strong theory. And it's the part of this story that makes the whole thing go from interesting historical footnote to, wait, hold on. What is this? Okay, so the full gateway document describes a series of stages, levels of consciousness that a trained practitioner moves through using hemisync audio tapes. It starts normal enough, relaxation, focus, mild meditative states, but as you go deeper into the levels, which Monroe called focus levels, numbered from 10 to 21 and beyond, things get considerably weirder. Focus 10, mind awake, body asleep. You're fully conscious, but your physical body has essentially checked out. Focus 12, a state of expanded awareness. You're no longer just receiving input from your senses. You're apparently receiving information from somewhere else. Monroe described this as accessing what he called non-physical channels. I know what you're thinking. This sounds like pseudoscience dressed up in a military language. And honestly, that's a total fair reaction. Totally fair reaction. But here's the thing. The CIA's analyst writing this report, Wayne McDonald, was also skeptical. He spent the first third of his report basically trying to debunk it. And then, somewhere in the middle of writing it, something shifted. Because he starts citing quantum physicist Niels Bohr, he starts talking about David Bohm's holographic universe theory. He starts drawing diagrams, actual hand-drawn diagrams, connecting consciousness to the structure of space-time. This guy came in as a skeptic and left as a very confused army officer who clearly spent several weekends down a rabbit hole he did not plan to enter. And the highest levels, Focus 21 and what Moran called the far reaches, that's where the document gets into territory that I want to describe carefully because it's real. It's in the document and it's genuinely hard to process. The Gateway document, in its later sections, makes the claim about consciousness that's actually consistent with a branch of theoretical physics. The claim is this: consciousness is not produced by the brain. The brain is more like a receiver, a biological radio tuned to a specific frequency. Consciousness itself exists outside the body as a pattern of energy interacting with what physicists call the quantum hologram. The idea that the universe stores information about every event that has ever happened in a kind of infinite, non-local field. Under this model, the Gateway Protocol isn't just a relaxation technique. It's a method for retuning the receiver, for accessing parts of that field that normal waking consciousness can't reach. And what you could theoretically access, according to this document, information about remote locations, future events, deceased individuals, non-physical intelligence. Which, look, I want to be clear. The CIA was not running a ghost hotline. At no point did an analyst sit down with headphones and say, "Please connect me with Abraham Lincoln. I have a follow-up question." But the document does completely seriously suggest that with sufficient training, human consciousness can access information that has no known physical transmission mechanism. And it was written by a government employee on government time, presumably in a government building with fluorescent lights and a terrible coffee machine. Here's the question nobody can quite answer. Did any of this actually work? Were there people who went through the full gateway training and reported genuine anomalous results? The answer is yes. And some of those people had government clearances. The Monroe Institute trained hundreds of people, including military and intelligence personnel, through the gateway process in 1970s, 80s, and 90s. There are documented cases within the classified remote viewing program, a separate but related CIA program called Stargate, where trained viewers describe real locations, real structures, and real events with accuracy that statisticians, it's a hard word to say, statisticians said couldn't be explained by chance alone. The Stargate program ran for over 2 decades and cost approximately $20 million. The government's conclusions, when they officially ended it in 1995, inconclusive, but anomalous results cannot be fully explained. That is bureaucratic language for we saw things we cannot explain, and we are choosing not to think about it anymore. Now remember that 29-page document I mentioned at the start? The one that was forgotten on the server for 20 years? When it finally surfaced and researchers started digging, the Monroe Institute was still operating, still running programs, still producing hemisync audio. The technology went from classified CIA assessments. What is it? To a wellness product like the one you can buy on my link below. Whether or not the deeper claims hold up, the underlying mechanisms, the binaural beat audio, the brainwave entrainment, that part is real. That's peer-reviewed neuroscience now. What your brain does with it at the deeper levels of the protocol, that's still generally an open question. What I find most interesting about this gateway document isn't the wild claims about consciousness and holographic universes, it's the tone. This is a trained, skeptical military analyst, someone whose entire job is to evaluate threats and dismiss nonsense. And he can't dismiss this. He goes in looking for reasons to call it bogus and comes out writing about quantum mechanics and the nature of time. There is a line near the end of the document that I keep thinking about. McDonald writes that the gateway process represents a legitimate and potentially significant means of expanding human consciousness with implications that reach way beyond intelligence applications. A CIA document about human consciousness calling it significant. The missing page 25 might just be a scanning error. The Monroe Institute might be selling expensive meditation tapes. The remote viewing program might have been the world's most expensive dead end. Or, and this is the part that makes this story impossible to fully close, some of it might have been real, and the people who knew exactly how real it was decided that decided that information was better left on a forgotten server for 20 years.